The Idaho Vandals are looking to turn things around this season, and KREM 2 is here to bring you all the updates. Hey there, I'm KREM 2 Sports Director Travis Green. Thanks for watching us on KREM 2 Plus. Here now is an update on the Vandals.
This is a big game, man. Big game right away, and they're a good team, and I know Coach Ball's been there a few years, and they want to get over the hump and get into the playoffs.
Coach Eck would like to see his offense get in the end zone more this Saturday against NAU, as opposed to settling for 4 field goals from Big Sky Special Teams Player of the Week, Ricardo Chavez, on Saturday against Drake.
You can't beat really good teams counting by threes. You got to count by sevens down there. So we got to do a good job of execution. Sometimes we shot ourselves in the foot down there. And the guys got to look each other in the eye in the huddle and say, hey, we're going to lock in, we're going to do what it takes here to find a way to finish.
On defense, Coach Eck would like to see his team do something they did not do well at the beginning of the Drake game.
I think the biggest strides we have to make is doing a good job stopping the run and not letting people just bleed us. We can't be giving up 5 yards a pop in the run game.
Eck enjoyed his first win as a head coach, but he is ready to hit conference play running.
I want to get my first conference win now, though. This will be I think something I'm to be much more excited about. We have some things we can clean up. I think we got to be better on third down on offense. We got to be better in the red zone, getting more touchdowns. It was great. Ricardo did a great job kicking those 4 field goals, but we don't want to kick field goals in the red zone. Want to count by 7. I think probably the big challenge for the defense, we got to stop the run better. Thought the team did show good resiliency. I like how we responded after getting off to a rougher start. I thought we finished, it didn't take till halftime. The end of the second quarter, we did a good job kind of getting us back with it and getting back the game under control. We got to keep doing a good job protecting the football. I think that was encouraging. Our second week in a row with no turnovers, and I think that'll be really big as we get into conference play. So, questions?
How healthy are you?
Pretty healthy. You hope to get some guys back, like Bo St. John, who didn't play last week, and Jason Hallback, who didn't play last week. I think that'd be great to get both of those guys back. We'll have to see on Jordan Dwyer. He tweaked his ankle a little bit and didn't come back, but we'll see if he can be ready to go. We'll find out as the week goes on. So we're fine, injury-wise.
You're kind of at both ends of the continuum here, playing Pac-10, Big Ten teams, and then a Pioneer League team. Coming out of these 3 games, what do you learn about yourself going into the Big Sky?
Well, I think we got, not a lot. These are the games you find out, because I think our first 3 games, really weren't level playing fields either way. We were on paper a heavy favorite against Drake, and the other teams on paper were heavy favorites against us. Now you get to more of a game today. These are 2 teams that are pretty evenly matched, and it's going to be who plays better on Saturday. And Coach Ball has done a really good job there. What really impresses me, how their defense, has been playing. I think holding Sam Houston to 3 points on the road. I've seen that Sam Houston offense playing them at my former school in the playoffs. I mean, that's a good offense. They've gone against a lot of really athletic running quarterbacks, so they've had some tough offenses to handle. So their schedule, they haven't had a Pioneer League team on their schedule. They've played 3 really quality opponents. So this is definitely going to be a good test for the Vandals.
Coach, what did your defense do that you liked after you went down 14-7 in that game? Pitched to shut out the rest of the game. What kind of flipped for you guys after that?
Well, I think we did a good job of, we did an improved job of stopping the run. I think we tightened some things up. We pressured them a little bit more to give them some problems. Played a little bit more man coverage, just because I thought we gave up some. In the first half they were 5 of 8 on third down, and some of them were like kind of dink and dunk completions. And I thought we had better personnel, so I thought, let's play these guys man and get in their face and not give them something easy on third down. I thought the defense responded well, and then the turnovers were huge. Getting the turnover right before the half set up the field goal, and then later in the game, they had a nice interception that set us up on offense. So just kind of got back to being us, and again, I think the biggest strides we have to make is doing a good job stopping the run and not letting people just bleed us. They had a few nice series early in the game. Drake did, where they really dominated the time of possession and drove down the field on us. And, we can't be giving up 5 yards a pop, in the run game.
And then how impressed were you with your special teams on Saturday, and how can you move forward with that after, such a big outing on Saturday?
I thought it was awesome. I mean, to see, not only Ricardo, but, blocking a punt. Hogan Hatton did a nice job blocking the punt. JJ, returned the punt for the touchdown. Sean McCormick really had a nice day. He's going to be our, Ricardo got Conference Player of the Week for our team. It was Sean McCormick. He made a bunch of plays on special teams. Really, all 4 units. I call it like hitting for the cycle. On punt return, kickoff, and kickoff return, he made a big play on all of those, which is what you want, man. Guys who are really embracing their roles. He's not playing a ton on defense. I think he better played about 10 snaps on defense, but he's doing a great job of being a dominating special teams player. So I think that's important because these games that are, evenly matched, special teams certainly can make the difference, and we put a big emphasis on that.
And then, even though it's great seeing Ricardo win Special Teams Player of the Week, you mentioned it, wanting to finish those drives a little bit better on offense. What's kind of the emphasis this week about maybe putting it in the end zone rather than kicking field goals?
You need to. You can't beat really good teams counting by 3s. You got to count by 7s down there. So, we got to do a good job of execution. Sometimes we shot ourselves in the foot down there. We got to do a good job putting them, we got a good play selection that we put them in our players in the best, situations to succeed. And again, I think we have to be at our best in those situations. The guys got to look each other in the eye in the huddle and say, hey, we're gonna lock in. We're gonna do what it takes here to find a way to finish. And we got to do the same thing on 3rd down. We weren't good enough in the game on 3rd down either. We had a couple of key 4th down conversions. Connor Whitney made 2 really nice plays that helped us extend drives, but we need to be better on 3rd down for sure.
And then heading into northern Arizona, just kind of what are some of the challenges apart from, they played the running quarterbacks and stuff, but what are some of the challenges you're seeing on film from them?
I think they had good personnel. They had a good defensive line that's pretty active. They're big inside with their 2 big D tackles. I think they're good at linebacker. Number 5, Heston Lamata, and Jahizi Wilson, number 10, are good players. Their safety, number 7, Morgan Vest, likes to get down in the box. They're talented in offense. I think they have some receivers who can go and run really well. A couple of their old linemen were guys who recruited out of high school. Their right tackle we recruited out of high school when I was at South Dakota State. He's a good player. I think their quarterback's doing a good job. R.J. Martinez. He's I think improved from the guy they had at quarterback last year. So it's going to be a challenge. We're going to have to play very well, and I think we'll have to play our best game we've had thus far to get a win. It's a tough place to play. I thought North Dakota was affected by the crowd noise, especially early in the game, had some false starts. So we got to prepare for that and be ready to go for that.
And then talk a little bit about the 3-headed monster you have at running back right now. All 3 of those guys broke off some big plays. Obviously, Elisha and Roshan both got in the end zone, but just kind of seeing that room and seeing some of their success early in the season, what does that say about the running back?
Well, I think it starts with Roshan. He's the leader of that room. He's a team captain, and I think he's done a great job of encouraging and helping the other guys along. So it really starts with him, and then they all have little different styles. Roshan's a downhill back, excellent on the goal line, excellent in short yardage. Anthony has done a good job of making some guys miss and has had our most explosive runs on the year, which has been good to see because that's given us a boost. And then, I think Eli did a nice job in his first action of the year, and I think he's probably at the best hands of those guys. So I think he's a guy who can help us as well in the passing game. So they're all going to have a role. I think they're all good football players, and we're going to use all the bullets we have in the chamber here to put together offensive game plans. But I do think good to have depth there.
And then defensively, your linebacker play on Saturday was tremendous. Obviously, Paul was flying all around the field, and Favai was being Favai. Just kind of, what have those guys brought to that defense? And looking at your first conference game this week, how crucial will they be for your defense's success?
I think we have definitely some upper tier Big Sky linebackers, and it was good that we got Sully Sullivan back for some more extended action. Which allowed us, playing him at our will backer allows Paul to play out at Sam, and it's a good core, and Favai's playing very hard and running to the football and getting after it, so very happy with our linebackers and how they play. They've done a great job. We got true freshman Dylan Lane, some reps in there too last game to keep building, for the future that way, but those guys are good football players. I'm glad we don't have to play against them. I'm glad they're on our team.
The folks down at Flagstaff, when they're talking to their coach, asking him questions about Idaho, what are they saying about you guys?
What was the score of the game last year when they played?
It's 38-31.
It was a close game. Yeah, I think they'd probably say, hey, this is going to be a tough game. This team's going to come in here and battle. They're not going to be intimidated coming into this dome. They played pretty well on the road and jumped on people early on the road. So Coach Ball will have them ready. I think he's a good coach. He understands the Palouse. He was up here at Washington State for a long time, so I think he'll have them ready. And I think they'll want to get turnovers from our offense because we've done a pretty good job protecting the football. I think they'll want to continue to dominate on third down because we've struggled a little bit on third down on offense. And I think he'll probably want to run the ball some. They have not, ran the ball great, but they've played against three pretty good defenses. So I bet that they're thinking this is a week that they can get the run game going against us and expose some things there. So again, it's going to be a tough test.
Those games against Indiana and Washington State being on the road, kind of hostile environments. Obviously, there were some Vandal fans there in Pullman, but how will that help you heading into your first road test of conference play?
Well, I think it definitely will. Even though it was raining, I think there was 40,000 fans or something in Indiana, so this dome will be tough, but they're not going to be 40. I think they had, what they had with their last home game. They had 7,800. It's still better than us, so I want to get better than that. We need to get more people at our game, so our numbers are more 7,800 rather than 5,800 or whatever we were at. But our kids are used to hostile, loud environments. I think we got to keep handling it better, though. We got to do a better job of pre-snap penalties and foolish post-snap penalties. I think are a concern. I think we're doing a good job not beating ourselves in the turnover game, protecting the football, but we got to do a better job. We have had some drive-killing penalties that could be eliminated, both pre-snap and post-snap. Those are most of ours have been coming. I'm not as concerned about the aggressive ones, during the whistle. You're going to have a aggressive hold once in a while or aggressive pass interference on defense. I can live with those, but the pre-snap ones and then the post-snap late hit ones, those are foolish.
And then just clarification, will Giovanni be starting on Saturday?
Yep. Giovanni's our starting quarterback. It was good to get Dylan some experience. We haven't gotten far enough along to talk yet about whether this will be a week we'd want to use Jack. I definitely want to get Jack in 4 games and give him meaningful snaps, just like last week. We had everyone knows the quarterback, but we had 5 freshmen who played for the first time in the first half of that game, and that's my big thing when you're playing those freshmen and trying to use those games of guys you think have bright futures. You need meaningful snaps. You don't want to put them in at the end when it's 42-14 because those snaps aren't as meaningful as the ones where it's tied in the first half. And I told the coaches during the week, I said, hey, when you have these planned subs, it's good to have a series. All right, this series you're going in. Jack knew he was going in the first series of the second quarter, first full series, and you got to stick with that too, because all of a sudden now the game's tight. If you don't put them in, you're not really showing confidence in your players. So it's good to say what you're going to do and stick with it. And we did that and got all those guys in the game, and they got some very valuable experience. And there certainly will be some things to correct, but did a lot of good things.
Going into camp, you had 3, talking about quarterbacks, you had 3 guys who thought they were going to be the guy this year. They're going to be the starter. How do you keep everybody on board now that you have picked a starter?
Well, I think you got to have that team first mentality, and credit to those guys. We haven't had issues with guys pouting or guys hanging their head. My message to the entire team is once the season starts, kind of defining of roles is done. Now it's about accepting our roles. Spring ball and fall camp, you have time to define your roles, and whatever that is. And there's been some guys like Derek Tomasini. I'm not sure if he's played a snap on defense yet, but is making a difference on special teams. And Sean McCormick played a few snaps on defense, but most of his reps have been on special teams. So those are great examples of guys, embracing their role and doing a great job with that.
Obviously, you guys played 2 tough games against those big FBS schools. You got a win last week. What would your first conference win this week mean to you guys and getting back to 500 as you go throughout the rest of the season?
I think this is a huge game. And again, I think they're teams that are, both of us are 1 and 2, but have had a tough strength of schedule. Us playing 2 Power 5 teams, them playing a Power 5, the team that's transitioning up who won the national title a couple years ago, and then North Dakota, who's wasn't a playoff team last year, but was a playoff team a couple years ago, and is from the to me the other top conference besides us. I think in the Sagarin ratings right now, they have the Missouri Valley is number 1, Big Sky is number 2 for the best conferences. So I think we're both good football teams, but our records say 1-2. You know, so I think it's big. You know, the team who gets the win in this game obviously helps you a lot for playoff position when you start looking at 7 Division I wins. And you know, I don't think this is a must win, but you know, again, if you lose this game, either team, I think it makes your path to the playoffs a lot tougher now, because now you got to win like 6 out of 7. I think to be assured that you would get in. You know, I think 6 and 5 is a bubble thing where there's no guarantees. You know, it's kind of out of your control. So this is a big game, man. Big game right away, and you know, they're a good team, and I know Coach Ball's been there a few years, and you know, they want to get over the hump and get into the playoffs. And we got a lot of Arizona guys from our team too, so I think that means a lot to, you know, the Hatton brothers, you know, are from Arizona. Roshan is from Arizona. Malachi Williams, Sully Shannon. So I think this game means a lot to you know, a lot of our players who are from down that way.
Is Therese, do you expect him back this year, or is he done?
No, I expect him back this year. I don't know about this week. We hope so. You know, I think he's going to run in the pool with the trainers here later today, and you know, we got to see. We got to see where he's going to be at. You know, what I don't want is, you know, I don't want to keep what happened kind of the first 2 weeks where he could play some, but he couldn't finish the games. You know, I think we want to get him back where he's healthy, and now we feel good that he's going to be good to go. You know, we're going to play him, and he's going to, you know, knock on wood and something else happens, but we feel like, hey, he's back to where he can play a full game. So we want to be smart with that. I'd rather hold him out an extra week and then have him back at 100% rather than trying to have him play at 75 or 80%, and then you don't know, you know, what you're going to get out of him.
You talked a little bit about JJ earlier when we brought up special teams, but he's been kind of a constant for you guys this year, making big catches downfield, and obviously he got the explosive play on special teams. Just what have you seen from him in your first year here that's really impressed you?
Well, I think JJ has a great work ethic. You know, I think he had a great spring practice, great fall camp. You know, Therese and Hayden Hatton, who, you know, probably had more accolades coming into the year, you know, both had some time where they missed, you know, for different reasons during spring ball and fall camp. And I think he's a great example. You keep working, you keep improving, you keep getting better, your role can expand. And you know, he stepped up and made a lot of huge plays for us. I think he's a you know, kind of the leader of that receiver room, and you know, I'm very proud of him. And you know, I think he's shown good you know, resiliency. You know, I got on him a little bit and talked to him. He had a personal foul in the game, and you know, about 5 minutes later, he makes a huge play with the punt return for a touchdown. So he's really stepped up huge, has been a playmaker for us. You know, I think the coaches knew that coming into the year, that he was going to be a great playmaker for us on offense, and he's a guy who we're looking to get the ball in his hands in a number of different ways so we can make some things happen.
A couple of questions going into this year. Your defensive front was not the biggest. And the offensive line, once you got past the starters, kind of fell off of it. Hey, 3 games into this, are those 2 groups coming along?
Yeah, you know, it's, you know, as far as, you know, it's tough if you're not going to have like your D lineman gain like 20 pounds of good weight during the season. So we're probably going to be lighter on the defensive front throughout the whole year, but we just got to find, you know, continue to do a good job of putting those guys in the best situations as possible. You know, we played some different guys last week just to play more depth, like Tui. I'm not even sure how to say Tui's last name. Tui Anumo.
I have to look at it.
The big sucker, he's like 98, you know, number 90. You know, he's our one guy who is 300 pounds, and you know, I thought he did some good things. I thought Ben Bertram is a guy who's improving a lot. You know, Ben is a guy who I've kind of noticed playing better each week, and we want to keep expanding his role. So I think playing a lot of guys in there to keep fresh. You know, we're probably going to bring 7 D tackles to Northern Arizona. So you know, playing a lot of guys, doing some good things there. I think goal line wise, it was great. You know, we played 3 true freshmen in the game last week. 2 started with Aiden Kanapik and Tagana Cisse, and I thought they played pretty well. You know, you expect to have some hiccups and stuff when you have true freshmen, and you know, I think Aiden probably played a little better in the first half. I think he might have got, you know, fatigued a little bit. You know, those high school games are, you know, 12-minute quarters. College games 15, so it's like really like playing 5 high school quarters. So you know, I think you saw that a little bit, maybe his first college game getting a little worn down, and he wasn't rotating where Tagana was rotating. We kind of rotated Abe Christensen, Logan Harris, and Tagana at guard. But you know, I think those were valuable snaps. Jack Foster got in at the end, our freshman from Bishop Kelly down in Boise, and you know, he'll be a good player down the road. You know, still hope to redshirt those guys, but you know, I think that was valuable game experience for those guys to get. And you that definitely certainly helps the depth. We just got to be smart, and hopefully our health will allow us to have those guys play, but still have them play 4 games or less so we can redshirt them for development down the road.
And to be clear, they're making the trip.
Yeah. Those guys, maybe not Jack Foster. He might be an odd man out, but Tagana and Aiden Knappich, yes, they've dressed for every game, for all 3 of the games. But I do think the O-line, has been improving. Again, we had 1 sack in this game. We had 6 in the first game, then 3, then 1, and really the 1. I think if you asked Giovanni, he'd tell you, I got to get rid of that ball a little quicker. He held it for a little long on the 1 sack we gave up. So I think they're playing better, and last week was our best game with tailback run as well.
Coach, with Ricardo, have you ever seen a kicker who kicks with his right foot and punts with his left foot?
I could not believe it when he first told me, but it's really a great thing because one, I think left-footed punters are always a little tricky for people because of the spin of the ball is different. And then the other thing, it's just good for his legs. Sometimes you worry about a guy doing, both kicking and punting. Is his legs going to get worn out through the years? Is he going to get, injuries from overwork? And that certainly keeps him fresher when he's, 1 foot's the plant leg and 1 foot's the kick leg. So he's doing a great job. I thought Logan Prescott did a solid job kicking off for us as well, which, takes some burden of Ricardo not having to do it all. Again, I think Ricardo can punt a little better. I'd love to see a little bit more distance on his punts. But outstanding to be, 6 for 6 in the season, knock on wood on field goals. That's awesome.
Going into this game and this league, the Big Sky traditionally kind of makes you defend every inch of turf out there. It's a throw-in league. And you played 2 Power 5 teams and a Pioneer League team going into this game. How helpful is that, playing against 2 big opponents who can play the whole field as well? Yeah,
I do think, both Indiana and Washington State being teams that really wanted to be an 11 personnel, 3 wideouts, 1 back, 1 tight end. I think that helps your team with just alignments and, knowing how to align to those formations. Drake was a little different because they were a huddle team and they, were in more big personnels. They had, 2 and 3 tight ends on the field and 2 backs at times, which you don't see quite as much of that in our league. And I thought it was really good by Coach Steps, as I thought they had a good plan coming in early, where they were trying to play ball control and pound it and, run the ball a lot, because I think they probably felt that they weren't going to be able to protect great, if they had to drop back a bunch. So it was a good game plan by them. So I think it has prepared us well for a lot what we're going to see in conference. But I think what a lot of teams do as well when they're game planning against your defense is they look what you've struggled with and they try to do that stuff too. So if that's not totally their personality, I think there's going to be some teams who try to ram the ball down, the middle on us and see if we can hold up. So we got to keep continuing with that, getting better with that, even though that may not be, Northern Arizona's MO up to this point. But running the ball and stopping the run, very, very important to success.
So with this last home game, I'm being a student here for 5 years, it's probably the best student section I've been a part of or I've seen. How did it feel kind of having those students come out, be loud and rowdy, and kind of what are your expectations for Northern Colorado to fill out the rest of the dome?
I thought it was unbelievable. Our student section was one of the best student sections I've ever seen. I thought they were into it. They, they stayed pretty long. I know at the end when they got a little blowout, maybe the 4th quarter, but they were into the game. I think they made a difference in the game. They were loud. They were fired up. I can't say enough about them. Again, the ASUI, the student government on campus, I think it did a great job promoting it and really making a difference. But the kids got out of the tailgate and came to the games, which I've heard they hadn't done in the past. So I can't say enough about them. Now they need their uncles and their parents and those other people to come too, because I think we need to fill up the other sections here for the homecoming game. And again, I really do. Think we can, be a championship program here, but I think we got to keep growing that. We got to keep growing our support and getting more people there, putting their money where their mouth is, and getting involved in the program. And again, we got to put a good product out. Hopefully we got to play really good this week at Northern Arizona to get people excited, for this homecoming game.
Your pregame video bringing the kids up to the mountain was really good. I've been up to the mountain. Did you have them walk up there?
No, we drove. I thought my car was going to maybe get stuck, sometimes because we made a wrong turn and stuff. We're going up these dirt roads and stuff, but no, we thankfully we drove up and filmed that during August, and Richard and Zach, who do a lot of our video stuff, they kind of had a vision of what to do with that, and yeah, I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was a heck of a deal. The kids enjoyed being a part of it and being a part of the video, and that was very, very well done. And really, I think our videos in general, our video production has been outstanding. I mean, that has been, FCS championship level productions with our post-game highlights and our pre-game videos, and that's huge for recruiting. That's how you relate to kids and things.
Was anybody out there? Any hikers or mountain bikers or dog walkers?
I think we saw maybe a few people, but it wasn't that crowded when we went up there, and had a nice clear day, and it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Saturday you made some in-game adjustments, something that the first two games seemed kind of like a struggle against those Power 5 teams. What do you kind of attribute those adjustments to against Drake on Saturday?
We just changed some different things we were doing. Pressured them certainly more than we did in the early in the drive. Played a little bit more man coverage. Again, I'd say we're more of a zone team, but we played quite a bit of man this year, really, because we played a lot of man in the Indiana game as well. So, it's good when you have versatility. You can do both things because that makes you tougher to defend. So, I think any game is kind of a process of doing it. They came out early, and they stole some things from Indiana that they really hadn't shown. They came out and spread the field and got like in a 4-wide set, and then tried to run it. Trying to get our outside backers to walk out and cover receivers, and had success with it there. So it's always a little bit of a cat and mouse game of seeing how a specific team is going to attack you, and what their game plan is coming in. But I thought, particularly on defense, I think we did a good job making some adjustments, and really was happy how the defense played in the second half. I mean, and really from the end of the second quarter on, how they played.
Haddon coming back this week, I think 6 catches for him, and he was really, sure-handed, and he was around. Kind of talk about his performance and how important it is to have him on the field.
He's got great hands. He's got great hands. He's smart. He's a guy we can move around a little bit and put in different spots, and very reliable with catching the football. And we got to continue to find ways to get him the rock and put him in positions where he can make a difference in the game and get first downs, and hopefully get us a few more explosive plays. But he's doing a great job for us, and I know he's excited to be an Arizona native, excited to go back and play in his home state this week. He mentioned to me that Northern Arizona didn't recruit him, so I think this is a little bit of a motivation for him and his brother.
And then you mentioned too that players kind of dictate the playing time. With Anthony Woods, is he going to get more reps coming into this game?
You're going to keep seeing him playing more. I think the math, when you look at the stats and the film, looks at it. It's not a real hard evaluation. My 11-year-old son Palmer was here, and I think he could probably evaluate and see what we're getting yards per carry out of Anthony. And again, we're gonna play the best players. We're gonna play the guys who think give us the best chance to win. And I think we have to be creative. It's one of our jobs as coaches is using our players the best way, because the other backs are good players too. It's not that they're not good players, just Anthony's playing at a real high level. So maybe there's more times where we got to use 2 backs together and things.
Getting your first victory as a head coach, that's a big deal, but your family being here, saw that picture with you hugging your wife. How emotional was that for you, and how big was that?
Well, I really appreciate my wife, because she's kind of gone out of her way this year. My son's finishing up his football season back in South Dakota, so she's 6 a.m. watching him play Friday night, then 6 a.m. flight Saturday morning to get out here. She got a flat tire on the way to the airport in South Dakota, so she was calling me at 4:45 Central Time, 2:45 her, and we're trying to map out getting her a cab to the airport at that time in the morning so she could make it. I think she's still got to go down the night and pick up the car that's fixed now with the tire that blew out. So she's making a lot of sacrifices, and being there for my son and letting him finish. Hopefully my next son Palmer can help get the Moscow high school football team turned around and get them rolling. They've been having a rough year this year, but he was happy to stay there with his teammates and be able to play as a captain out there. So awesome. My wife's a rock star, and was awesome to have her here to celebrate the win. And I want to get my first conference win now. So this will be I think something more to be much more excited about.
2 guys who have played here a fair amount in the past, Romano, who I don't think got in this game, and Zach Morris, who got in a couple of games. What's going on with their roles? this season?
Romano's out right now, so he hasn't played because of health reasons. So he's limited right now. Though I think we might have got some good news from the doctor, so maybe we can get him back. I think he could have a valuable role in special teams because he's fast and pretty big. And then, Zach's a backup receiver for us. He got in and did a nice job on the 2-point conversion. And, he was the backup to JJ in that play, and I think that was a great example. JJ was gassed after the long return and needed a blow, and that's what you want out of your backups. Zach went in and executed the route, got himself open, and caught the big 2-point conversion. And then, we got him in there with, for a run there at the end, did a nice job with the quarterback run. So I think Zach's doing a good job. Got to keep practicing well and keep seeing what's happening with what his role in the game plan, is going to be. Our offense is a little different than it was, last year with that staff. So, and I know his role is, not quite as big with having the ball in his hands as it was in the past. But he's a good football player who's battle tested, and just like he did on Saturday, I think he'll continue to make plays that help us and doing a nice job on special teams as well.
Last question for me, Coach. I know it's 3 games in. You guys have had a chance to kind of get your routine down, spring camp, fall. I want to talk about this coaching staff. You brought Coach Slice with you over here. You got Matt Linehan back with receivers. I mean, you got a solid offensive side, and then defense. We talked about that. Coach Boris, Coach Rose. Now that we're kind of a ways, into this season, got a game from your belt. Talk about the staff that you put together and kind of what's impressed you about bringing these guys in.
I love our staff. I think they've done a tremendous job, and I think they have the kids, believing in what we're doing and are doing a great job being mentors to the guys and bringing them along both on and off the field. I think Coach Slice, we have a lot of similar visions of how to attack things offensively, and I think we complement each other that way. Coach Booth, I think, is doing a good job. Like we talked earlier, our O-line, I think, has improved from week to week. Coach Sutton's doing a great job, with recruiting. A little bit more being the recruiting coordinator. We had 3, recruits on official visits last week, which adds a little bit more hecticness, and he did a great job. 2 of them were already committed. We got the 3rd one committed while he was here, so that was awesome. Coach Ford's doing a great job with, with special teams. You saw what a difference they were, and doing a great job with the running backs, and balancing that with the different guys there and getting Anthony, Woods coming along. And then, Coach Linehan, he's had some injuries at his position. So I think he's done a nice job, and he's continued to keep developing the younger guys and bringing them along. And then, I think Coach Arwich really has us playing, high-level defense. I'd say out of the 12 quarters we've played, I think probably 9 of those quarters we played pretty damn good defense. The second half against Indiana, maybe the first quarter against Drake weren't the hottest, but he's doing a nice job. And I think Coach Yelk is kind of his right-hand man with helping him with that stuff. And our D-line, I think, can continue to be a difference maker for us. And Coach Lose and Coach Swag are doing a great job with recruiting. And then our corners have played at a high level. I think Marcus Harris, I know he gave up one big play the other day, but I think he's having an outstanding season. Playing like an all-conference guy, and Jeremiah Salam as well. So credit to Stanley Franks and the work he's doing there. So again, I think we have an outstanding coaching staff, and I want to keep these guys together as long as we can, because they, they certainly make me look like a good coach, because they're doing a great job.
Leo Tom is not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got a motor. He looks like he really contributed for you.
You know what? He's accountability is one of our kind of pillars of our program, and he's a highly accountable dude. He does what he's supposed to do, and he does it really hard, consistently. So I think you know what you're going to get out of him, and that's a great effort. I think he's given great leadership to the team, and really done a great job with that perspective, both with the D-line and with the whole team, with young players. So can't say enough about that young man. I think he's done a great job. And then, Giuliano's made a lot of plays at the other end spot. And then, Kamari Bailey really impressed me. I thought he did a lot of great things coming off the bench. He's going to be our defensive player of the game. Had a hit on the quarterback on one of the interceptions, and then also had a sack himself. So again, I think we're talented there. And in our nickel package, we're able to get all those guys in the field at the same time. We have really a package where we're playing with 4 defensive ends at a time, and I think that's a package that can really help us in the conference, trying to find some mismatches athletically against offensive lines.
We have much more sports content available for you to watch right now on KREM 2+. To find it, just navigate to the Sports tab at the top of your screen. I'm Travis Green. Thanks for watching.